So today we're learning that the most powerful man in the world, called the second richest man in the world, directly. President Trump reportedly complaining to Jeff Bezos about a report that Amazon, a company Bezos no longer runs, planned to display tariff import charges on the products it sells. A source familiar with the call tells NBC News that it likely came around the same time that the White House publicly slammed the move by Amazon, calling it a hostile and political act. Well, Amazon has since denied the report, now saying that their ultra-low-cost Amazon Haul store, H-A-U-L, considered posting tariff surcharges, but it never was quite approved and never was going to happen. Joining me now is NBC's Christine Romans, New York Times reporter and MSNBC contributor Jeremy Peters is here as well. Look, we know that Bezos and Trump have spent time together in the past, but how important is it for Amazon to be in the administration's good graces?
Well, I mean, look, a lot of these CEOs have really invested, and he's not even CEO of Amazon anymore, right? But have really invested this personal relationship with the president, because the president has been known to go after industries or go after different countries or companies, rather. And you're right, countries too. And you don't want to be on the wrong end of that. I think this episode shows you just how sensitive the White House is to how big its tariffs are against China and how that is real money. I mean, this little Amazon Haul tab that you have to get to. I mean, this wasn't even about putting these prices on all of Amazon, and they decided not to do it. Temu, the other real low retailer, is doing it as well. But I mean, imagine you buy something that's worth $100 from China. The tariff is $145. That's $245 for something that used to cost $100. And the White House apparently doesn't want that broken out, you know, for consumers to be able to see just how big these tariffs are.
Let me also bring in Teddy Schleifer. You're our billionaire reporter for the New York Times. You know all of this very well. So the president picks up the phone. He calls Jeff Bezos directly. Is that necessarily unusual? What do you make of this exchange?
Yeah, we're not aware of Bezos and Trump having any one-on-one conversation, at least since Trump came into office in January. So it just sort of shows just how kind of trigger happy everyone here is, right? Trump is very concerned about this report, anonymously sourced, and, you know, immediately, like, imagine any other president doing this in any other time, immediately just calls him up. You know, it makes you wonder, how was this just literally, you know, Trump at the Resolute desk, you know, or in the Oval, picking up his cell phone and calling Bezos on his cell phone? You know, Bezos apparently is very nervous about this, understandably. So he picks up the call and they just have this one-on-one conversation. I mean, it sort of shows just how nuts kind of the corporate White House interactions are these days, that there's no bureaucracy. It's purely mano a mano, and Bezos has a reason to be concerned about Trump, and Trump has a reason to be concerned about this anonymously sourced report. And suddenly, you know, it's a couple hours later, and this is a huge kind of micro scandal on a Tuesday morning. And you can never imagine this happening between, say, Apple and Barack Obama a decade ago.
Okay, so Jeremy, let me play for you what the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt had to say about Amazon this morning.
I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise, because as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Should we be fact-checking that?
Yes. First of all, a president doesn't choose to hike inflation, right? There's not a policy he can set into place
today. Check.
Yeah, it's not an interest rate, right? It's not something. It's something that's determined by other forces, and Trump is choosing to raise tariffs on Chinese goods and all sorts of other goods. So this is, in effect, a tax. And Republicans don't want you saying that. They certainly don't want to get blamed if these costs do indeed get passed along to consumers for any extended period of time, to be associated with that kind of inflation that, of course, they complained about to no end during the Biden administration. It is an interesting role reversal, though, Chris, because remember, during the 2024 campaign, you had the Democrats being rightfully criticized for saying, why is everyone so worried about the economy? The economy's good. Look at the Dow. Look at the GDP. And people weren't feeling that. And Biden was almost insisting, no, what's wrong with you? You snap out of it. You should feel it. You should feel good about this. Trump and Republicans are basically saying the same thing right now, telling people don't believe what you read in your 401k statement or your brokerage account or the prices that you're seeing at the grocery store or on the shelf at Best Buy. Everything is fine. And, at the end of the day, I don't know. The American people did not take Joe Biden's word for it. There's not really much of a reason to think that they'll take Trump's either.
So the Google, which I did, Teddy, and you may know this off the top of your head, I'm getting a lot of different numbers, but just so people understand the impact of Amazon on the economy, somewhere between 1.3 and $1.58 billion in products sold every day by Amazon. So let's say not insignificant. I don't remember these kinds of relationships back when Walmart was everything, right? Between the Walton family and the way that we're seeing it now. What has changed? Is it just that reporters like you are reporting on it more, or is this just a whole new world?
Yeah, look, I mean, the dependency of kind of America or any of our own personal bank accounts on, on Amazon obviously has changed a lot. I mean, the e-commerce market is dominated by this single company. And to what Jeremy's getting at, you could see if Amazon did do this, you can see how it would be all anybody could talk about in the world of retail, right? You'd have real consumers discussing suddenly why is toilet paper twice as expensive. Like, it's an interesting thought experiment at the very least here. And clearly you could see why Amazon would be, if they were to take this policy step, it would be extraordinarily controversial. I'm sure Bezos would be requesting, the famous 6-page memos that he asks for before making any big decision. Like, this would be a historic decision in kind of Amazon political relationships in Washington, which is why sort of when I saw the story this morning, I mean, I have no inside knowledge here, I was shocked and I almost didn't believe it, because I would think to myself, Jeff Bezos would only do this after, considering every possible option. And the way it kind of came out this morning was sort of flippant and surprising. And I think you can see in Carolyn Levitt's reaction herself, she was taken aback, even though she had the color printout of that Reuters story ready to go.
Yeah, boy, did she. So look, Jeremy, retail, obviously a huge part of all this. But one of the things that we talked about the very first day that Donald Trump decided he was going to do tariffs was, okay, you might not see it immediately, even though there would be some people rushing out to buy a car or a phone, right? But you wait a couple months, you wait 3 months, and suddenly you'll start to see the impact. Canada, perfect example, after their elections there, for the third straight month, Canadian tourism to the U.S. is down sharply. This is the biggest group of people, the largest country for tourism into the United States. You're hearing reports of things like people saying, you know what, I'm not going to go to Florida this year when it's brutally cold in Canada. I'm not going to go to Arizona. I think I'll go to Mexico or all those border towns. I know when I lived in upstate New York, the Canadian tourism, not just at Niagara Falls, but all across the border, was huge. And it was the driver of local economies. So talk a little bit about the significance of what we're seeing overall as we actually do see people feeling the impact of what the tariffs have wrought.
Right. And there's probably something of a political cause here, too, maybe not responsible for a whole big chunk of that percentage drop. But part of it, you imagine people are like, no, America, they want to invade us. They want to take over our economy. I don't think we're going to. Right? I don't need to say it. The new prime minister or the president of Canada said it today. But it is interesting when you think about it from the other side of the border. Where are Americans deciding to spend their money this summer on vacation? Are they going to spend money on vacation? You saw one of the airlines over the weekend come out and lower its guidance for earnings because they don't anticipate people traveling as much this summer because of the economic uncertainty. And it's those type of big ticket, high price items that people are putting off for now because they just don't know what their costs are going to look like in a month or two.
Yeah, a bunch of airlines and a bunch of other companies are just pulling their guidance altogether. Last time we saw that happen, it was COVID. It was a global health crisis. It was the last time we saw so many companies say, we don't know what's going to happen. We can't even plausibly tell our shareholders how much money we're going to make.